music today. I finally solved the issue of no music during the countdown. Woohoo! So, welcome to another Digital Photo Mentor YouTube live stream. And today I'm going to be doing portrait editing workflow. And interestingly enough, we were just setting up for this session earlier today, and I said a phrase that I said to Rob, write this down. This is a good one. Your portrait workflow starts in the camera. So I'm going to show you what I mean by that with a few examples of some images that I took in the camera, which evolved into something that I edited later. So before we get started, I just want to say hello to people that are just joining in. We got some regulars. And what I would like to do is just check my sound. How am I in sync? Before we start, always check a sync. We've got Danelle and Manfred in the house so far. And of course, Rob is here in the chat to communicate and share links with you as we go along. So if you're joining for the first time, if you're just seeing my stream for the first time, let me know where you're joining in from and how you found me. Sheila says, it is snowing again on the East Coast. We're expecting to go back into the deep freeze in a few days here in Alberta as well. And before I get started, while I'm still on the screen live, my mic is too quiet. Oh, hang on. Let me see. No, it's turned up. Okay, let me check the volume. No, okay. Go to my system settings. I'm checking all the things. Give me a second here for sound. Says I'm too quiet. Input. Ah, turned down. How's that? Is that better? Turned up. Better, Rob? For some reason, the input was turned down. If not, I can check my mode of mix as well. Danelle's been a big fan for many years. Thank you so much. Move my face. Move it in front of your... This is as close to me as it gets, Rob. This is as long as the arm is. I have to physically move closer to it. I don't have a long enough arm here. So I'm as close to it as I can get and still see my keyboard and stuff. Is that better? Sheila says it sounds good on her end. Okay, let me see if I can turn it up a little bit. Give me a second. Anybody else joining in for the first time? I know Danelle's been with me and watching for a while. Okay. Turn that up a little bit as well. Danelle says slightly low. Is that better? I turned it up a little bit using another device. So I've got a few images that I want to share, but let me change my screen so I can share. Hi, Marsha. Okay, so these are the images I'm going to be working with today. And I've got a few examples to show different things, okay? So when I say portrait editing, it doesn't necessarily mean a studio portrait, and it doesn't mean, you know, even a posed portrait, right? This could be something that you just took of a person, right? So I've got various different ones of models and things that we've used in our photography tours from India. I've got just on my screen, I've got India, Vietnam, and Cuba. So I'll be going back to Vietnam in September this year, and we actually have one spot left. So if you're interested in filling that spot, I'd love it if you came with me to Vietnam. We got one spot left. Rob, if you could please share a link to the Vietnam tour. So I'm going to start with this lady, because when we think of portrait editing, again, oops, let me get out of here. There we go. Let me just start with this lady. When we think of portraits, or when I say portraits, people often think, you know, professional, studio lit, and so on. So this was just taken in a village in India. This is the original camera file. Okay, so you can see that my exposure is good, but she's a little bit dark just because of the lighting is behind her for the most part. So I want to show you the progression of what I did with this image in the different software, and then I'm going to do the process on a different image. Okay. So this is what I did in Lightroom, and she looks a little bit yellowish green here, but the before oops, that's not before and after. Let me get the before here, because when I do a virtual copy, what happens is you end up with your before. Where's my reset? There we go. As a different setting, as a different step. See, I made a virtual copy. So I want to make sure that the full before is based on the reset. All right, so before is the original. And that's what I've done with Lightroom. Like I said, she looks a little bit green here. So perhaps that's the profile. But then I took it into Luminar because I wanted to do a few things. I wanted to soften her skin a little bit. One thing that you want to do with portrait editing is to soften the skin but not make it look like they have no texture whatsoever. And especially with her, you know, she's got very weathered skin, and that really adds to the look of the portrait, right? So I don't want to make her look like a plastic Barbie doll, okay? So I just want to flatter her a little bit without removing all the texture in her skin. So this is what I did using Luminar. So I did slim her face a little bit, but look at the difference in the eyes. I want to show you these side by side, okay? And I want to show you the difference of what Luminar can do with eyes. So there's a lot of portrait editing tools that are now part of Lightroom, right? But you can't do things that the same kinds of things that you can do with Luminar. Okay, so look at the eyes compared to the eyes here. Okay, so I've really enhanced the color of her eyes, right? And then I took it a step farther and I did a bit more editing in Lightroom after I did my Luminar edits. Okay, you can see that her skin is softened but not completely void of texture. Okay, that's my final edit. So you can see that I've brightened her a little bit more, but look at the difference in the eyes, okay? And that's the amazing portrait tools in Luminar that can do that, okay? Now I could slim her face and I could do that kind of thing in Photoshop as well, but I just find that Luminar is a lot easier and the portrait tools are super quick to do those things, and they go farther and they do a better job than Lightroom tools do, okay? So let me take this into another portrait. I'm going to start with this one actually, because I'm going to start with this one. I lied. I'm going to start with this one because I can do a lot with this one. So this one is actually taken 10 years ago in Cuba. Then these are models that we hired. But the reason I'm choosing this image is it's got a lot of things that I can demonstrate. Okay, we can clean up the background. They've got some dark circles under their eyes. If we zoom in really close, you could see he's got sort of some imperfections in his skin and some flyaway hairs. Maybe I want to give her some lipstick, that kind of thing. So I want to show you basically all of the tools that I use in my editing arsenal for portraits, okay? The first thing that I do always is I go to the camera profile, and I shot Fuji, okay, way back when, and I tend to like the Astia profile, so I always do my basic editing in Lightroom first, my cataloging, my basic editing, okay? I wish I'd have told her to take off her watch because it's picking up a reflection, and then of course she's got sunglasses hanging from her shirt as well, and her bra strap is picking up a reflection, plus there's garbage and stuff in the background, so I want to try and clean up as much of this as possible. So my basic editing is always camera profile first, and then I want to do what's called the white point adjustment. So I'm going to do shift double click on the words, and that sets the endpoint. So notice how it lowered the white endpoint and the black endpoint. So now there's nothing clipping, okay? So I've got maybe a tiny bit of clipping on his shirt, okay? So it looks like the blue, but before her top was clipping. So clipping means off the chart, no detail, okay? Instead of lowering the whites, I'm actually just going to bring the highlights down a little bit because I don't want to minimize the whites on the rest of the image. So you have to be careful with doing too much of this that it starts to look like the whites look gray, okay? So I want to leave the white where it was, maybe down a tiny little bit, okay? Because I can work on that shirt independently, right? So I'm looking at her face, And I don't want to take the whites down because it flattens the light, okay? So remember, everything we do here is a global edit. And now her shirt looks gray or actually kind of blue. Okay, so I don't want to do that. I want to leave it clipping a tiny little bit, okay? And then I'll come back and do just the shirt, do some custom edits just on the shirt. Okay. Now I'm using a lot of keyboard shortcuts. I do that a lot. You see me zoom in and out. I'm pressing the J key to get the clipping warnings to show up. So if you'd like to get a copy of my Lightroom keyboard shortcuts cheat sheet, I have to say that slowly. Rob, could you please put a link in the chat for the keyboard shortcuts for Lightroom so far? Danelle says, Darlene, do you deliberately remove the reflections of the people in her eyes? Your photo is very sharp. Sometimes I do, yes. I think you were talking about the Indian lady. Sometimes I do, right? On this one, right, there's lots of detail and reflections in her eyes, and I did want to see more of the color in her eyes. So this was the original, and you could see the people there. Look, and Rob was amazed by this a minute ago. You could see that there's literally 5 of us taking her photo. Okay, so we were all sort of lined up taking this poor woman's photo. So I did remove the reflections in this one using Luminar. Good catch, Dano. Very, very good catch. Okay, let me come back to this one. Okay, so far all I'm doing is some basic edits just to give it a little more punch. I'm gonna warm it up a little because it feels a little cold. So I'm gonna try auto white balance to see what I get. Okay, definitely warmer, maybe a little too warm. Okay, you could try the preset. So if you shot raw, which I highly recommend, okay, then you get your camera profiles and you get all the white balance profiles. So I'm going to go with daylight. That's pretty blue. Let's try cloudy. That's a little bit warmer. That is better, I think. I find that if it's a Canon file, I usually dial the magenta down. This is a Fuji file, so it's not bad. So I'm pretty happy with that color. I might take a tiny bit of magenta out. Okay. What I find is when an image looks blue, there's also typically magenta. So I'm usually taking these sliders opposite directions. So I take temperature up and tint down, right? And or vice versa. Right? Clarity on people, the default I leave it at is 12 because clarity on people is no bueno. So if you think he had problems with the skin before, clarity is not going to help. And if you go the opposite way, then you have, again, what I talked about earlier, the plastic people scenario. Okay, so I tend to leave it where it's at the default. I have my default set to 12. Okay, so I leave it there. Then I have some presets that I've created for myself in Lightroom, and I actually teach this in my Lightroom course as well. And one I have is darken edges. Okay, so that one just adds an edge vignette. So you can make presets for yourself, and all that's doing, I'm just going to undo it. Okay, I'm going to reset this. Why is this not resetting? I must have done this. Okay, 0. There we go. So I'm zeroing this out. Now when I add the vignette, all it's doing is applying the settings here in the effects panel, which is the vignette. Okay, so my trick for applying a vignette is to dial the feather down to 0. And I may lighten this one a little bit, then adjust the size and the shape. Okay, I want it just around them like that. Okay, and in Lightroom, you cannot adjust the position. Okay, so I'm going to leave it fairly light. I'm not going to go as heavy as this. I might even dial it up a little bit, and I'll darken this corner another way because I don't want to go any darker here and here. Okay, so I'm going to keep this one about there. Right, then I have another preset that I use for selecting the subject and the background. Okay, so I'm going to show you this manually, and then I'll show you my shortcut because I created a preset that literally just does this for me. Okay, so to do this, what I would go is subject, rename the mask like that, and then do another one, select background, and rename it background. Okay, so I'm just going to do that on a different image just to show you how quick and easy my preset is. Okay, so no masks, click select subject and background, right? I clicked it, nothing happened, right? But the masks have both been created, no edits have been applied, but it just took those 2 steps that I just did and saved it as a preset. Okay, so basically I just made blank masks and saved it as a Lightroom preset. Okay, again, these are things I teach in the Lightroom course. Now that I've got those things, now I can use them. So I can say, okay, on the subject, what do I want to do? Well, I might want to lower the highlights a little, but I just want it on her shirt. So I've got plus clarity everywhere else. I might do minus clarity. Honestly, I might just bring the shadows up a tiny little bit, okay? But I don't want to flatten them out so much, okay? So I'm just going to bring it up a little bit, right? And probably take a little bit of blue out. So I might give them a little bit more warmth again, not too much. We're talking minimal. I'm talking 3 on this slider and 22 on this one, okay? Then I'm going to go to the background, okay? And I want to darken the background a little bit using exposure. And then if I go with whites, it lowers the contrast, okay? Or highlights, okay? Either way, I'm lowering the contrast. So I just want to darken the background a little bit. And we can also do a little bit of minus clarity. Again, don't go too far because this is not the best way to blur the background. And minus texture, okay? I find those ones actually work pretty well. So just a few global adjustments here in the essentials or the basic panel. A lens vignette, okay? And my corrections were applied automatically because I have a Fuji camera, okay? So things like distortion and chromatic aberration. I've gone from that to that, okay? Now, I would probably do some things like go in and remove some of these things in the background, just some of this trash, right? I don't know what it is, but I want to get rid of it. So I'm just using the remove tool. So I'm not doing generative remove, just the regular remove tool. And I'm just getting rid of a few of the bits of garbage, right? There was a lot of garbage at this park, and this is the easiest way to get rid of it, right? I might get rid of that whole stick. There we go. So just things that are distracting. If you're not happy, that looks kind of blurry. Oh, and it looks phallic as well. Let me just do another one. I could try refresh, or I could try heal and choose it from another location. I really need to redo my selection. That's terrible. Right? So refresh. I'm going to delete that one. I don't like that selection. We need to keep it a family style show here. Okay, let's just make it rectangular. How about that? There we go. All right, so now I'll try it again. And if I don't like what I'm getting, I'll try heal. So remove tries to fill like content aware fill. Heal pulls from another area. So it's drawing from here as the source and trying to match here. Okay, so I want to kind of pick up a bit more of the texture and not have it so textureless. That's a little better. I can still refresh, right? So until I get something I'm happy with. I'm going to end up blurring this background anyways, so I'm not overly concerned about it. Okay, that looks pretty good, okay? You can also lower the opacity of it, okay? So if you want it to blend a little bit more. Okay, let me zoom out, see if there's anything else that stands out. That looks pretty good to me, okay? I might even do like things like this back in the background. Anything that's sort of a white spot that's drawing attention, I will just get rid of it, right? With the erase tool. Now, notice that after I've done erase, this little notice showed up here, okay? This is a new thing in Lightroom where if you've done any kind of AI, so I did AI masking for select subject and background, and then you either do remove or lens blur, you have to update one or the other. Okay, so it's telling me with this little yellow notice that I need to update the masking. So I can either click here to update that or just click update and it will update everything. Okay. All right. Now it's getting pretty good, right? I'm going to actually go back to the remove tool and see if it picks up the reflection on her watch. Okay. I want to see if the remove tool, which now has remove reflections, picks up this. Okay. If it does, I'll use it. Okay. If not, we're just trying it out. Let me see here. Remove tool beats bending down and picking up the garbage. In this case, it does because there was so much of it. And also it was kind of gross. So yeah, I don't really want to touch that particular garbage. Okay. Is it doing anything? It's doing something on his shirt, which is interesting. So it thinks there's a reflection on his shirt and it's not doing anything to the watch. It was worth a shot. I also find that it doesn't tend to pick up eyeglass reflections either, which is what I was really hoping it would do. Okay. As far as this, anything else that I might do in here, I will do some portrait retouching from time to time. But if I know I'm going to Luminar anyways, I'm not going to. Okay. What I can do is I'll add a little bit of sharpening here and mask it. Okay. So under the detail panel in Lightroom, this sharpening slider is really important. So let me take the sharpening up and show you what happens when you go too far. Okay, so when you sharpen faces, okay, this is what too far looks like. Even there, okay, so you're starting to over sharpen. But there's a slider down here for masking. When I hold down the Option key or Alt on Windows and drag the slider, so I'm clicking on Alt and the slider, right? Now it's showing me where the masking is applying, meaning anywhere that you see white, that's where it's sharpening. So I don't want to sharpen his skin or their skin. So I keep dragging this up. So I'm only getting the outlines of things. Okay. So don't sharpen skin. So see what difference that made. Okay. So it's sharpening without over sharpening the skin. So I'm still not going to go to extreme. Okay, but it's doing a nice job just sharpening their eyes a little bit. Okay, see the hair? Maybe I'll dial that back just a little bit. There we go. Okay, now that's about all I might do in here, other than I can shift the color a bit if I want the green to be a little bit desaturated. So let's lower the greens a little bit, right? I don't mind the yellow, okay, because the yellow is kind of in the wall. I don't want to enhance it, but maybe lighten it. So let's brighten the yellows a little bit. And orange almost always affects skin tone. See that? So if you want to brighten people, be aware that orange brightens. Be careful of red, okay? Because if you brighten red, their lips turn white. If you darken it, any blemishes, like if I darken to get her lips, any blemishes get increased, okay? So I tend to sort of stay away from the red slider unless I'm really masking it in carefully, okay? I could also darken his shirt, okay, or lighten it, and likewise desaturate it, okay? So let's make it, his shirt doesn't match her top, right? Because she's got a really white top. So I think if I brighten his shirt and make it sort of more of like a pastel blue, okay, it's going to look better next to her shirt. So kind of something like that, okay? Be careful of saturating orange because you end up with like orange people, right? So don't do that. I think overall that's looking pretty good, okay? That's about as far as I would take this one in Lightroom. Okay, if that's all I'm doing, I also have a preset for portrait retouching. I'm just going to apply it and then remove it just to show you what it does. So you can find some of these adaptive presets down in here. These come from Lightroom, okay? So you don't have to make them yourself. I just didn't like their settings, so I took their glamour portrait one, which I'll apply here. Let's go with polished, okay? You can see if I hover over what it's doing, okay? So gritty portrait, look what it's doing to their faces, okay? Gritty, smooth facial skin. I don't like this version because it makes them look plastic, okay? You see that? Polished is not bad, but what it does is it applies a whole bunch of masks, okay? So it masked out the facial skin, body skin, eyebrows, eyes, sclera, pupils, lips, teeth, facial hair, and hair, okay? Facial hair is a new one. So I'm not a fan of how it smooths the skin, right? So I'm actually going to undo that one and do those kinds of edits in another software, okay? Likewise with dealing with his blemishes, okay? So I know that I can do a better job in Photoshop and or Luminar. So that's what I'm going to do. Now my workflow is I'm going to take this image into Photoshop as a smart object. So if I want to do any, actually, let me deal with her shirt first. Is her shirt still clipping? No, her shirt is not clipping anymore. Notice that when I deal with the blue, watch here, watch her shirt. See that? There's a lot of blue in her shirt. Okay, so I could actually select just her shirt. Let's do that, right? In a mask. So people, so mask, new, people, and I want her, but I just want her clothes, okay? So it's going to pick up her shirt. It's also picking up her watch, which is fine. Then we don't have the HSL sliders anymore, but I can lower the saturation, which gets rid of that blue, and I can lower the highlights, which gets rid of the clipping problem. Okay, see that? So what this mask is doing is just affecting her shirt. Okay, I might not go quite that far. Right? And I'll rename it. It's really important to rename your masks because then if you're copy and pasting or syncing or making a preset, they're also renamed and you know which mask is doing which thing. Okay, now that I've toned down her shirt a little bit, I'm going to go to Photoshop. So open as a smart object. And I've already got Photoshop open, so it should go pretty quickly. Oh, and it's still open on the other screen. I even set it up so that it would open over here, but it did not for me. So here we go. And let me get my demo mode. Okay. All right. So I don't need color swatches. There we go. Okay. So now my layer is a smart object. Okay, can you see this right here? That indicates it is a smart object. So anything I do on this layer is re-editable, meaning this is truly non-destructive editing. So that's why I want to get the raw edits as close to what I want as possible. Now, if there was any liquefy, for example, I would come in and do that first, okay, before I do anything else, or I could do liquefy after I do Luminar. I'll show you what liquefy does too. Liquefy will do things like usually slimming, but I can also fix the edge of her shirt here, okay? I'll show you how I could do that with her shirt. But I'm going to go from here to Luminar. So the reason I do that is because it allows me to do non-destructive editing and get back to Luminar and the settings that I applied in Luminar if I want to change them later, right? And of course it opens on my other screen again over here. Okay, there we go. So now I've created a number of presets for myself as well. I have one called Glamour Portrait, and I'm going to just apply it in the essence of time. So again, my workflow includes these things because it helps me speed things up. Okay, so I don't want to have to go and click every single tool and do it every time. So the preset allows me to do it in one click and then just tweak the settings. Okay, so look what happened. So a number of things happened, obviously, right? So I'm going to go to edits, or edit first, and then edits, which is like your history. And I'm just going to start here. So it looks like I've darkened a little bit, okay? Then I applied face light and slimmed the face a little bit. Now they don't need that, so I'm going to take that off. Eyes, I used gray eyes. So I used a replacement and made gray eyes. And I'm going to change that to brown because we see more of his eyes. And I believe they are brown. Right. I don't want to whiten too much. I might enlarge. No, that's not working. I was hoping it would pick up her. It's not even picking up her eyes. That's too bad. Right. And let's see if it picks up mouth. It is picking up her mouth, so I can darken the lips a little bit. Careful with redness because he doesn't want to have lipstick, right? Then I think I went to skin, and this is where the magic happens on the skin, right? Let's see how well it did. I'm hoping it gets more of the blemishes. It didn't get all of them, but he's definitely a lot less bumpy. You see that? And the shine down the nose, look what a great job it's doing there. See that? Right? So I'm still going to have to probably go and do some cloning, but I will do that in Photoshop, okay? Then I applied the portrait bokeh. There is lens blur in Lightroom, but in my opinion, it's not as good as the portrait bokeh tool in Luminar because I have more control with it, okay? So I want to just keep it to the background. I don't want to blur quite so close to them. So look at the mask, right? It's picking up a little of the background, so I'm going to fix that mask. Okay, so I'm going to tell it this is what I want this to be in the background, okay? So I'm just letting Luminar know to defocus that part. And they're covered in the mask, so that's good, right? Now I could set the amount of blur, right? The distance, either further away or closer to them, right? And I can also add a highlight glow, warm up or cool down the background, so I can make the background cooler. So I'll do that a little bit. And I can also darken the background, okay? So I can do that at the same time as blurring. So let's take a look at what that's doing. It's subtle, right? But it also does a really nice job on stray hairs and blurring them as well. Right? Then on this one, I have a color harmony, which is brightening them. That's doing a nice job. There's no black and white. I left this one in the preset because if I want to make them black and white, it's really easy, right? In this case, actually it's not bad, but I'm not going to make them black and white. I'm going to leave the color, okay? In my glamour portrait preset, I use this tool, but in this case, I'm going to keep it really minimal, right? The high key tool. Then the vignette. So this is where I want to apply a better vignette, right, that I can place. So I want to place it around them, okay? So it's getting more of this edge. So I do the same thing. Dial the feather down, place it, and then adjust the brightness. Glow, this is something I apply on almost every portrait. So even though I've got skin smoothing already, I do Orton effect and a nice glow on everything, okay? So it gives them this beautiful soft glow, okay? Now I feel like they're a little bit oversaturated, so I'm just going to come into, let's do it in the color tool. I'm just going to dial the saturation down a tiny little bit, just to soften it a little bit. Right? And there's some new tools that I didn't have when I made that preset, including Studio Light, which could add some more light into their eyes, and light depth. So I want to see what light depth does. There's nothing like this in Lightroom, okay? And if you want to do this in Photoshop, it's really tricky. So it allows me to dial in light. I want to get light on him and her. So you see where it's applying here on their faces, right? So I'm getting it mostly, I want it mostly on him because he's kind of dark. So I get it in the right spot. Okay, then I'm gonna soften it a little bit so the edge is a little softer. And notice now I can do things like darken the foreground. So I'm darkening his arm and control the background. Okay, so I can darken it even more. as well as warm it up or cool it down in the background, and same with the foreground. Okay, so this tool is really powerful in terms of adding light to the subject, darkening the background, and shifting the color tones. Okay, I am going to try studio light on this one as well. So amount, it'll take a second to analyze, and then I'll be able to place the spot. Any questions about what I'm doing so far? Like, why did I come to Luminar? At what point, did I decide to leave Lightroom? Okay, so I just want to see, the light is coming from here. So I want to add some light from the front, okay? And it's lighting her up too much, but that's okay. Okay, I am going to soften it a little bit, okay? See what that's doing. Again, it's also darkening the background. It's lighting up her nose too much, so I'm actually just going to get it off her nose because I don't want to brighten up her nose, and I don't want to brighten her arm so much. Okay. Still getting her nose. There we go. That's better. Still getting her nose a little bit. So I'm using my keyboard shortcut to resize the brush. So see what that's doing before and after. It's not getting as much light in her eye as I would have liked. So there's other ways to lighten the eye. I could use dodge and burn here, or I could use dodge and burn back in Lightroom or back in Photoshop, okay? So there's a few other tools that I could use in Photoshop that I haven't yet, right? But I'm pretty happy with the before and after here, okay? They are really standing out now. Yeah, her eye's still a little dark on that side. So let's apply this. Now it's going to bring it back to Photoshop. Okay, so this is my workflow. Basic editing in Lightroom, take it to Photoshop as a smart object, take it to Luminar, or sometimes I'll even use Aperitif. It's more of a glamour type photo, also made by Skylum. And then bring it back to Photoshop. Now you see it applied as a smart filter. So that's why I did it as a smart object, because I can get back to Luminar Neo and change any of the edits if I want to. So let's say, oh, there's too much of a glow. So I'm going to double click. It's going to reopen Luminar, okay? Again, on my other screen. Takes it a minute, but it's going to go right back where we left off, okay? And all the edits that I did are here. You see that? I'm not sure why it's not. Oh, there we go. Processing image. Okay, so now I can say, well, there's a little too much glow. I'm just going to dial it down a little bit and not so much glow, and then reapply all the edits, and I'll come right back to Photoshop. Okay, when you get back to Photoshop, the first thing I generally do, and I should have done that before I evoked Luminar again, is do a save. So when I do save, not save as, I cannot tell you enough. No save as. See the big X I'm making? Do not do save as in Photoshop. When you come from Lightroom, do a save, because when you do save, then it comes back into Lightroom. Okay, see, there's our original, and I'll show you that it's the raw file. Okay, see, that's the raw file. There's the edited PSD. Okay, so it's already in Lightroom. Okay, now I've saved that, so it saves the PSD. It saves a PSD because that's the workflow that I set up in Lightroom and the preferences, okay? Now I just want to show you a couple other things that you can do. So if I want to do some liquify, I can smooth this out, and I can smooth out his shirt to some degree, okay? So I'll show you where to find liquify. So it's under the filters and liquify. You can also bring it up to camera raw again. And of course it opens on the other screen. Okay, so here is what liquefy looks like. Okay, so I can do things like open the eyes. Okay, so person one, I need to figure out who's person one and who's person two. Okay, so what I'm going to do is just kind of do a quick, yeah, so she's person two. Okay, so I just did a major edit just to see what it looks like. Now, I want to see if I can make her eyes bigger. So I'm going to lock the size. See, I can do that. I can also make the left one a little bigger. I can increase the height, right? See how I'm opening her eyes a little bit? Let me zoom in a bit more. Right? See how that's affecting the eyes, right? So there's the before. See how it's just opening that eye a little bit? This one here, right? And let's see what else. We can also do enhance lips a little bit. I don't understand the whole, see, I'm making his lip a little bigger. Watch his lip here. I don't understand the whole lip plumping fad, but anyways, so we can increase the lips. We can give them a smile. Look at that. I can just give her a little bit of a smile. See that? Pretty cool, right? Right? And I'm pretty happy with that, right? I don't know if I would do anything else. You can also affect the eyebrows and so on. But what I wanted to do is show you some of the tools that will fix some of this stuff here, okay? So if I grab the main tool, which is just to push things, okay? And you want to get your brush size just bigger or just about the same size as the thing you want to push. Okay, so see how I'm pushing that little bump in, right? So then I'm going to get a smaller brush to push this bump, and then a bigger brush to push this bump, and then smaller to pull this one out. Okay, so I'm kind of just changing the shape of her shirt to make it look like it wasn't so, you know, folded. Okay, so I'm just literally pulling these little things out, pushing and pulling. So that's what this tool does. Okay, pushing and pulling. Look at this bump here, right? And it just gives it a nicer finished look, right? And keep in mind, I mean, people do this on body parts too. And if you're going to do this on body parts, just be really subtle, okay? Don't make the person look not like themselves anymore, right? Flattery, yes. Body reshaping and dysmorphia, no. Just say no. Okay, so I'm just trying to make this one a little smoother just to show you what liquefy can do. And that's just using this one tool, okay? And get a bigger one. So when I'm dealing with a bigger, bigger bump, I need a bigger brush. Okay, so you have to size all the time. That's why you want these keyboard shortcuts. So look at the difference, okay? See her shirt? Just kind of smooths it out nicer, right? Now I could do the same kind of thing over here with his shirt. But you have to watch that when you start to do this, notice the thing on the outside also gets pushed, okay? So if I do that, see how it's affecting the leaves? So you have to just be conscious of that. You can make it work. You just have to do it so that it goes along with the size or shape of the thing that you're morphing, right? So the leaves are going this way, right? So I just keep it that way. Okay, so there's a before. Look at her smile, right? A little bit of a smile, cleaning things up a little bit, okay? Now you can also do things like, let's say he wanted bigger pecs, okay? So we could actually make him have bigger pecs. Unfortunately, it's going to make her hand bigger as well, but when you use this tool, this is the puff tool, and you put it on something, it puffs out, okay? Likewise, I could do the same on her. So I could give him bigger muscles. See that? Look at these big muscles I'm getting him, right? So he's going to like that, right? So he's going to be looking muscular, right? Like so. You can also use it to tuck in chins on the face shape. It's a really great tool for tucking chin shape as well. Okay, so that's liquify. So now they're both applied as a smart object in Photoshop. Okay, I'm going to do a save again. So every time I do a major thing, I'm saving so that if my PSD crashes or Photoshop crashes, I have this version saved. Now I want to deal with his skin. So I'm going to do a new blank layer, and I'm just going to show you a few Photoshop tricks here. So I'm going to call it retouching, right? And I'm going to spell it correctly. Now it's blank. There's nothing in this layer, okay? So what I want to, oops, need my layers back. What I want to do on this layer is cloning, okay? So I'm going to do healing and cloning, right? So I'm going to get the healing tool, right? So that's J, and I'm going to use the one where you don't have to do a selection. So you just click and it disappears. Make sure that sample all layers is checked off, and then just watch what happens. Like literally, I'm just painting over his blemishes and you watch them disappear. Okay, but I'm on a blank layer, right? So how does that work? Pretty cool, right? Now, he's got some scars and things, so I'm going to be conscious of not removing his scars. I'm just going to deal with the blemishes. Like maybe this one here I will, right? If you want to work with a scar, like this, for example, like he's got a sort of a wrinkle or a line here, right? If you want to deal with a scar and not remove it, then you want to use the stamp brush instead, the healing, not the healing brush, the stamp brush, okay? So the clone stamp brush. So I'm really doing this so quickly, right? See how quickly I'm doing this? I'm just literally clicking over the areas that I want to smooth. I kind of want to fix his eyebrow. It's bugging me, right? Let's take a look if she's got anything. No, she's good. Okay. Apparently my Photoshop is frozen. See, this is what happens. I'm just going to do a save. I don't know why my Photoshop is frozen. I'm going to close mode of a mix for a second. I just want to get back to my Photoshop. Why is it frozen? Interesting. My Photoshop is stuck. Okay, now I've got the stamp tool, but for some reason I can't move my image around. Oh, there we go. Okay, so now I want to use the stamp tool, still on this blank layer, okay? And I'm going to use, let's use normal blend mode, okay? You can change the blend mode, but you can also change the opacity, okay? So I'm only going to paint or clone with 30% opacity, okay, or roughly. So I'm going to start here. I'm going to choose a spot here, okay? And what is my clone tool doing? Oh, hang on. There we go. Could not use it. The area to oh, I need to define the area. Yes, I do. Okay, so pressing Alt Option defines the area. So I'm just targeting my source area just next to the scar. And then when I paint, I'm only painting over it with a lowered opacity. So all I did was soften it, okay? So instead of completely removing it like the healing tool does, I've just softened it, okay? Now we want to lighten her eye a bit, okay? So I want to show you the dodge and burn layer, okay? So that's a retouching layer. If I turn off the bottom layer, you can see that's all that's on this layer is the retouching, okay? I'm going to make another layer, and I'm going to make a dodge and burn layer, okay? So dodge and burn, okay? In this one, we want a particular kind of layer. I want a, no, I want a screen. I want an overlay. So you want to make a blend mode overlay on this layer and fill it with a neutral color of gray. Okay, so you literally just have a gray layer. If I turn off everything else, this layer is literally just gray. Okay, But because the blend mode is set to overlay, which looks for contrast, okay, when I paint using the paintbrush, set my colors to white and black, okay? So I'm using keyboard shortcuts here too. Rob, can you share the Photoshop keyboard shortcuts, please? Right, so now I could paint with white. So I'm going to switch my brush to white, and I'm going to use opacity. I can change the opacity by pressing the keyboard. So just 1 gives me 1%, 10 gives me 10%, okay? So I'm going to paint with white, which will dodge, okay? Let me do it on a different area first. Let me do it on the background, okay? So I'm going to do it at 100%. I press 0 to get 100%. See what happens, okay? So it's lightening, okay? If I go with black as my paintbrush color, now I have black. Now I'm darkening. See that? Okay, so white, switch my colors with X. 1 sets me to opacity 10. And now I'm just dodging in here. Okay, so dodging is lightening. Okay, I don't want to go over the light part. Okay, so dodging is lightening. You can also, I can switch to black and go 10% in here, give her more cheekbones. Okay, so you can add contours and shape this way as well. Okay, likewise here. So I can just give him a bit more shadow here. Right, I can increase the highlight along his jawline. Right, like this. And let me show you what this layer is doing. Right, so I went too far on her nose, right? So I'm just gonna go back here and probably undo a few steps here, right? I went too far there, but see what that layer is doing, right? And if I want to lighten his eyes, again, I can just go with 10%, right? And just go in here. I'm zooming in super close, changing the size of the brush. And if I was doing this kind of work myself, I'd be using my tablet, right? So graphics tablet for this kind of brush work, right? So that's where we're at now, okay? We've gotten rid of wrinkles in the shirt, softened the background, did all kinds of things. So now I'm going to save again and close, and when it closes, it's going to come back to Lightroom, okay? And you'll see this one, update real time. See them lighten? You see the before and after. So let me give you this too. So Lightroom on the left, after Photoshop and Luminar on the right, right? See the difference? So those are the kinds of things that I use each program to do, okay? They each have a strength. If I wanted to tackle this strap, I would do that in Photoshop as well. I'd probably just figure out how to sort of clone it out somehow, or I might even use the generative option in Photoshop. That would probably be the easiest. Likewise, to remove the watch and the sunglasses if they really, really bothered me, okay? So I would go into the generative tools there, right? Questions? Why open Luminar from Photoshop? Because if I didn't open it from Photoshop, I can't get back to it, okay? So now I'm all the way back into Lightroom. This is a PSD file, okay? If I had opened it directly into Luminar, I would have a TIFF, okay? So let me take a look at this one, okay? So this one is a JPEG. So I did take this one directly into Luminar. So the edits are cooked in then, okay? So because it's cooked in, I can't get back to Luminar and change the settings, okay? Whereas this one, I can open this in Photoshop again, okay? And the original, so it's going to give me the same layered file that I had a minute ago, right? And of course, it's going to open on the other screen. Where are we? Yeah, it's opening on the other screen. Oh, nope, there we are. Okay, so here's the same image, all the same layers. Here's Luminar Neo. So not only do I have all my Photoshop edits still preserved, even if I did nothing in Photoshop, I can still get back to Luminar, right? Once it opens, just like I did a minute ago to change the blur, right? And all of the edits that I did inside of Luminar are still here, okay? It takes a minute to open these things, but all the edits that I had are still here, right? It's just taking a second to open it. So that's why I go in through, that's why I go in through Photoshop first, okay? So I didn't make this one black and white before. Now, let's change it to black and white, just so you can see the difference, okay? So I'm gonna make it black and white, like so. And we need him to stand out from the background a little bit more, right? So just so you can see the difference, okay? So all we're changing is black and white. They've still got the beautiful light. Now when I apply it, it's going to come back to Photoshop as a black and white. And then when I save it, it'll come back to Lightroom as black and white. But all of that is editable. So that's what I mean by non-destructive editing. Wait for it to update. See, now the problem is we changed it to black and white, but our editing is in color, right? So I could fix that easily by just adding an adjustment layer here. Where are we? I could just add an adjustment layer so that the black and white is, yeah, that's not working, obviously. Okay, so what's going to happen here is I'd have to redo some of this retouching, but I'm just not going to save this one, okay? So I don't want to save it as black and white, right? Because I need to go fix all my retouching. But that's the main difference, okay? Sheila says, I hear you as someone who loved save as. I like that that's past tense, Sheila. Good job. How did it do you in, Danelle? Did you in? How did it do you in? Tell me more about that. Looking forward to the replay. No problem, Bob. It'll be there for you as soon as we are done. Would I create a Wacom tablet course? I actually don't own a Wacom tablet. I own Huion. I don't know how to say it. It's a third-party brand that's like a knockoff of Wacom. It's another one that makes tablets. So I don't actually own one, but I do. I covered a little bit. It's very hard to show what you're doing with the tablet, but you're basically anything that you would do with a mouse, you do with a tablet instead, with a pencil. So you get to use a pencil and it's just much easier. Okay, so I want to do a couple of other images here and show you a few things like syncing edits, okay? So the first thing I want to do is this one. So I want to show you this image and this image. They were taken in the same place. They're similar, but one is closer cropped than the other, okay? So what I want to show you is the power of syncing your edits in Lightroom, okay? And that created that preset in Luminar. So what I want to do here is I might actually use the adaptive profile here in Lightroom and see if it solves some of the background problems. I don't like how gray it made her shirt. Like I can brighten it, but I'm still not crazy about that. So that's a no. So I'm going to stick with one of my Fuji profiles. I might choose one that's a little bit actually flatter with less color. I don't mind that one, so it's a little bit softer, and I'm kind of feeling black and white for this image, but what I want to do is make sure that, you know, nothing is clipping, and the problem here is her face is dark in the background, and this is bright, obviously, okay? So I'm going to deal with some of the clipping like this. Don't want to go too far, okay, because I'm going to deal with the background separately, and then I'm just going to do shift double click, right? To me, that looks too muddy overall, so I'm going to keep my base clarity. I'm going to use my preset for select subject and background, okay, like so, okay? So remember, it doesn't do any edits. All it does is selects them for me. So I'm going to go with the background first, bring the highlights down, see how I'm getting rid of that, and darken overall, right? When I darken, I want to make sure the shadows don't go too dark. So I'm going to keep the contrast a bit lower, okay? That's looking better. Now I'm going to brighten her overall, give her some shadow lift, right? And then I'll come back and do the close separately, okay? Because if I darken, her face gets muddy, okay? So I'm gonna bring the highlights down a tiny bit, and then we'll go to close or to object, okay? So mask again, person, where is she? People. And I'm hoping it picks up the hat as close, fingers crossed. Person. Clothes. Yes, it did. Yay! Okay, so it thinks her hat is part of her clothes. And now I can bring those highlights down and the whites down. Okay, so see how much more texture now her top has. And I might even go another one on the hat alone. So I want to mask this one. So this is clothes and hat. And then I'm going to do another one for object select. And I'm just going to paint over the hat. And again, highlights down. Oops, not blacks. Highlights down and even darken overall. Maybe let's do that. Okay. See the big difference? Okay, so hat. I do a lot of editing to control where your eye goes. Okay, so all of this is for tone control, right? Look at the before and after. Okay, before and after. Okay, now I need to work on her face. I might crop it a little bit. Okay, I want to make sure that it's straight because it looks crooked. That looks better. So now the walls look straight, okay? And I wanted to get rid of that little bright spot in the corner, so straightening it has solved both problems, okay? I don't know, it still feels crooked to me. Oops. It still feels crooked to me. I think it also has to do with where are we here? Transform. So I might do a combination of transform and crop. Okay, so if I do transform auto, it's trying to correct sort of the verticals. That does a really nice job. Also fixes that issue in the corner. And I might just come in a tiny bit more. Okay, I like to get rid of things in the corner that are too bright. Right. Oops, that's not what I wanted to do. I did not want to reset. There we go. Okay. So we're so far before and after. Okay. Now we've done a pretty good job. I want to do a vignette and I haven't brightened her yet. So let's come back to subject. Let's brighten her a bit more. Okay. That looks good. And now this is where I will probably use my retouching preset. Okay. Just to get some basic editing. So my retouch preset does similar to what the Lightroom one does, but I just use different adjustments. Okay. And notice that I've basically used the Lightroom one that comes with Lightroom and then tweaked the settings a little bit. And so the masks are still nicely named. Okay. By the way, if you want to get rid of these things that are showing overlay, just press H on your keyboard and it hides them. Okay. I want to make sure her teeth aren't glowing too much. So I might actually dial that back a little bit. Right. And her teeth kind of look still pink, so I'm using saturation to minimize the color on her teeth. Her eyes look too white. You want to be careful you don't go too far on the eyes. So I really, really watch this one carefully. Right? I might not even adjust it at all with Lightroom. In fact, I'm going to delete this one. That looks better. Okay, now I'm not crazy about her lips. I've added some black to enhance the color a little bit on this one, but I'll probably do a better job with it in Lightroom, right? Dark circles under her eyes also don't get touched. Hair, okay? So her hair has added texture, but I'm going to lift the shadows a bit as well, right? So we're separating her a little bit there, okay? Now it's time to go to Lightroom. But before I do that, I'm going to copy all the settings, okay? Now there's a new subset in Lightroom where you can choose everything that's been modified. So it automatically checks off all the things that you've done, okay? For this one, I'm not going to use cropping and I'm not going to use transform. So I'm going to turn that off because the next image might be slightly different, or I can leave it on and see what it does, okay? I want to use all of the same things for masking except the hat, because the next one, she doesn't have the hat in, okay? So I'm doing all the masks except the hat. Now do you see why it's important to name them, okay? So I'm copying that. Then I'm going to paste over here. So see how she doesn't have the hat? So now I'm going to paste the settings. So I've hit paste, I think. Maybe I didn't copy. Oh, there we go. Taking a second. And it's going to copy the same things. Okay. All right. So obviously the transform did not do a good job. So I'm going to turn that off. Okay. Because it's distorting her. And this one looks a little bit darker. So overall, I just need to brighten it a little bit. But look how close we got. Right. So from that to that. Right. Pretty good. Right. And even though the images are completely different, the copy and paste worked pretty well, right? It is crooked, so I'll just straighten it. Again, I like to get rid of things. See this little thing at the top where there's this little white thing there, right? I would come in or tilt it a little bit more to get rid of that. And in fact, I might even crop into her head a little bit tighter on this one and get rid of some of that junk over here, okay? So cleaning up the background, right? And if you're going to crop into the person, make sure that you do it like intentionally. So sort of halfway into the hair is where I go, okay? Let's see if we can keep her whole hair though. I might go off aspect ratio on this one just to get rid of the junk in the background. There we go. So happy medium between getting rid of what's up there and like so, right? I would do things like getting rid of stray hairs here. You can see like her bra imprint through her dress because it's thin. And then I would take this one to Luminar. So let me just show you the difference, okay? So if I just take this straight to Luminar, so edit in Luminar, and often I will do that if I know that this is all that I'm doing, okay? I always take it as a TIFF if I'm doing it this way at 16-bit, so highest resolution, right? The raw file is a high res, okay? I want to keep it that way. Yeah, we'd love to have a sponsorship. Absolutely. Hey, Jamie. Nice to see you. You know who Jamie is, right, Rob? I photographed her. Okay. Donnell says, creating a preset to create masks at the very beginning is a great idea. My mind is spinning as to other masks I should create and use when I open files. Presets for landscapes. Absolutely. And there are some that are built in. I don't have like a landscape here, but if we still look at like these are my favorites, right? So if we scroll down, these are the ones that come with Lightroom down here, right? So there's a number of anything that says adaptive, these masks, right? These may apply some masks for you, okay? So spring, I don't have a landscape image here. So try these adaptive ones, but you can create a mask, yeah, to select all the elements, you know, like landscape, mountain, sky, and so on, right? Okay, where is my Luminar? It is in the middle of no man's land over here. Here we go. Okay, so now I'm not going to apply a preset here. I'm just going to show you the tools that I would use here. Okay, so I want to add some light to her face, right? So the tools that we just used on the last image are going to do an equally good job here, potentially. So I want to light her. Let me slide this until I get it. There we go. See, I'm watching this thing here, okay? So I'm watching this and I'm watching the image. Right, then I'm going to narrow it a little bit. Okay, so I don't want to light up the front of her and her dress or her outfit. I just want her face. See that? So just her face, okay? And now I can darken the background, which it's already doing. Oh, darken the foreground, okay? Darken the background, which it's doing a nice job of. I can also make it a bit cooler, okay? So also drawing attention to the person, okay? When you have warm colors in the background, your eye goes there, okay? But look what a great job it's doing brightening her, okay? It's adding a little bit too much light over here, more than I would like. So easy to fix. I'm just gonna do a linear gradient and starting from here, because I want it to apply from here over and fade off to that edge. Okay, so it's not going to apply over here. Okay, so it's going to fade off towards that edge. Right, now look what happens. See that? It's not affecting this edge. I want to keep that edge dark. Okay, that's doing a really nice job. Okay, now I'm going to go into skin. Let's zoom in to see her skin. Like, she has pretty good skin already, but she's actually got some perspective. What am I trying to say? Perspiration. Perspiration, right? So I'm going to use the shine removal and take up the smoothing quite high because I want her to be nice and soft. You can see the sweat on her forehead. So I'm hoping it picks it up with some of the blemish removal. No, it didn't. So I did this before on another one where it did get the blemish, but it's doing a nice job on the highlights on her face. So I'll take that. Right, then we're gonna do we could do face light again, but I think the other one is doing a better job. I'll just do it minor. And again, the eyes. Okay, so brown eyes for her. Watch the pupils. Look at the difference. Okay, eye enhancer. And we could enlarge her eyes a little bit. Again, if somebody is squinty, I don't want to make them into like bug eyes, and I don't want to make someone who's Asian not look Asian. Okay, so be careful of that. Dark circle removal. This one is great. Look what it's doing under her eye here. It's missing that one a little bit. Right, improve eyebrows. Her eyebrows are fine. Now, lip saturation. This is one that kind of needs a little bit of work, and I don't know if it's going to pick up her whole lips, but let's just take this to extreme. Okay, so see how it's kind of going over her lips and her teeth a little bit too much. Okay, so I would take it easy on this one because her lipstick itself actually wasn't quite applied correctly. Okay, but that overall, that looks pretty good. Okay, now always zoom out and look at it again because now I'm seeing her teeth and they look too bright. Okay, so I don't want to whiten her teeth anymore. And her eyes also look too white. Oh, even though they're not white. Yeah, don't make devil people. Right? That looks better. Right? What I can do is try and shift the color of her lipstick a little bit. Okay, so for example, if I know that her lipstick is red, I can try and shift it. See how that's affecting her lips, right? That looks a little bit better, but I don't want it to affect the rest of her. So I'm literally just going to brush it over her lips and her mouth, right? So I just want to get rid of that sort of that overly pink tint, okay? Then once I've done that, I can darken them a little bit. There we go. Okay, now it's not getting that edge there. Okay, so what I might do is come back and just paint it in a little bit more. So that one is going to be trickier to fix, right? Because I really have to get the edge of her lip. Okay, so on this one, I'm going to saturate and come in real close because I just want that part that was missed. Okay, so tiny little brush. Just along the edge of her lip here. See that? I'm just trying to smooth out the edge a little bit. And it looks too orange, so I've got too much of her actual lips. Okay, that's no problem. Erase from there. See, I'm just getting that edge. Yeah. Saturation. Luminance. There we go. That's better. Okay, so there's our before and after. And I always finish. I usually finish with glow, but I could also do mystical, which is another softening one that works really well. I just personally really like Orton Effect and what it does for portraits. I always lower the brightness on it. Sometimes the contrast as well, because I want it to stay the same brightness, but just add a little bit of that softness like that. So let's see the before and after of what Luminar is doing. I might do another vignette here just to darken the edges a little bit more. So again, feather down, get the size and the position, right? And then I can adjust the feather. I much prefer the Luminar vignette to the Lightroom vignette. And I think this would make a nice black and white portrait, but I'm going to leave it in color because I can always make that decision in Lightroom. Okay, so now when I apply this, okay, I could save this as a preset if I want to use this again, okay. However, when I apply this, it's going to bring it back to Lightroom, okay, as a TIFF, which is what I told it to take as the file format, right? But now that TIFF is got the edits baked in, okay? If I take this back to Luminar, this edited one, okay, it's going to make a new TIFF, or I could say edit the original, okay? So I'm going to edit this original TIFF. When I bring it back into Luminar, you'll see what happens, okay? I will have a different image. There's no edits, okay? So I can't change anything. So that's why I go to Photoshop in the middle, because it allows me to change things. Now I'm just going to, I'm just going to do, using the remove tool here. I'm going to use I use the stamp tool, or the clone tool, and I want to set it, the opacity. So I want to lower the darkness of her eye here, okay? So I'm going to set this area as the area that I want to fix, okay? Then it chooses the target or the source, okay? So I put the source right below, and then I can dial the opacity down because I just want to lighten it. I don't want to remove it, okay? So I'm just using the healing tool. I could also try the cloning tool, see if that works any better. Definitely heal. Right? So I just want to soften. See what that's doing under her eye? I just want to soften it. Okay. And for some reason, I got a thing about eyebrow imperfections today. So I'm just going to... when you do a lowered opacity, make sure you remember to increase it on the next thing that you do. Okay. So there is the finished version of that one. Okay. So let me show you the progression here. Okay. So I'm going to make a virtual copy of this one. And I'm going to reset the edits on this one so that you can see the progression. Okay. So this was the original. Okay. Really dark. That was after applying copy and paste from the other image and a few tweaks. And that is after going to Luminar. Okay, so that is my finished image. Now, because I have presets all along the way, I have a Luminar preset, I've got Lightroom presets that I created and saved, saves me a lot of time. So the subject background selection, all of the people selection, selecting every single mask to do, like the hair, the eyes, the lips, the skin, takes a lot of time. So having those set up as presets is a huge work saver. A few other things that I just noticed in here, like I would probably go in and like get rid of these little clips here, maybe clone them out, some of these stray hairs and so on. And that is definitely something that I would do in Photoshop. Okay. So I would have taken this one through Photoshop to do those things. Okay. I could try it in Luminar. Oops. I could try it in Luminar. Come back to the other image. But I don't know if it's going to do as good a job. Here, let's just see if I do remove. Yeah, I don't think it understands what I want it to do, I don't think. So I want it to be smooth. There we go. Okay, so you really have to sort of define the area. And it always defaults to remove, which is most annoying to me. Even though the last thing I did was heal, it always defaults to remove, which is so annoying. So that's not bad. Okay, you can sort of see it working. Again, it defaults to remove. So annoying. Okay, so I just removed those to clean it up a little bit. Okay, see the difference? So even after you bring it back from Luminar, you can still edit in Lightroom. Let's see. Any other questions? Okay, so I've got a few other things. So far we've been smoothing and softening, but what if we have a portrait of a man like this? You know, this is a fellow I also encountered in Cuba, and he just had so much character. He was literally sitting like this in his doorway, and I asked him if I could take his photo, and he said yes. Oh, yes, of course I am, Rob. We currently have a sale on our Lightroom course, so it is 30% off on the Lightroom course that we have. So check out the Lightroom course on our website, which is currently 30% off. So instead of, what is it, $98, it's $67. So you can pick it up for $67 if you are watching this video. Currently live. If you pick this up later and the sale is over, there's a coupon that you'll find, or discount code that you'll find in the description area below this video that will give you 20% off. So even if you miss out on the sale, you can still save if you use the coupon. So that's, thanks for being around our YouTube channel. I'd love it if you would all give this video a great thumbs up and share it. And once it's completed processing, you can now do something on your phone called Hype, and it helps the video get seen by other people. So if you really enjoyed it and you're getting lots out of it, I'd love it if you would give it some hype. So I want to show you this one of this really interesting character. So this is what I would call a character portrait. So I already edited him on this image, and I created this really strong black and white. Okay, so I can do the same kind of thing, and I want to show you what I did here. Let's see, did I do soft? No. So I'm using Adobe Monochrome. So I want to show you what I did here. The before is that, okay, and let's do something similar on this one. Okay, so as we know, we can do a copy and paste. Okay, so I can do copy and choose everything that's been modified. Okay, now I don't copy remove, because things that are need to be removed, like manual things, okay, so I could try reflections and people and dust, because those are automated, but manual spot removal is not going to work when you copy and paste. Okay, because even if it's a very similar image, things have moved. Okay, unless it's dust spots, but then again, you'll be using dust spot. Okay, so I'm copying and I'm going to paste onto this image. So I'm doing Command V. You don't see me doing that on the keyboard. Danelle says she was the third thumb. Thanks so much, Danelle. Now, did I crop this one? I did. So I copied the crop. So I'm actually going to undo that because I don't want to crop this one. I really like the fact that we can see into his home here and that he's got the TV in the background. But look what a great job just copying and pasting did. Okay, so let me show you what I did here. So I did some color adjustments on the black and white conversion. Okay, I might actually come back in here and like brighten him a little bit. Okay, so I can brighten him by brightening the orange. Remember, orange is face, but keep in mind that it's brightening the background as well. Okay, his shirt clearly has blue in it. Okay, and the light from outside is blue. So by darkening even a little bit, right, I get to darken this whole corner here. Okay, aqua tends to be similar. Okay, for some reason, when I go the opposite way, it lightens his shirt, which is actually a good thing. Right? Let's see if there's any green. I literally just take these up and down. Green, something's happening in the background. Right? Yellow, again, something is happening in the background, so I can actually tone those windows down a little bit. Right? He's got some magenta. Okay, and his shirt also has purple. Okay, but the blue is the one that was really affecting the doorway. So I'm going to increase the purple to bring his shirt back just to have a little bit of texture and keep the blue darker. Like that. There we go. Okay, so his arm is also quite dark. So I might see if I can come in here and do some adjustment on his arm. Right, so notice I've used the subject and background selection and applied some edits. Okay, so what I've done on the background, that's before. So look how contrasty it was. You see the inside is basically just black and white, and I increased the shadows and lowered the highlights to give you a little more detail in there. Okay, I can actually even brighten it just a tad. And on him, I applied some clarity and some texture and added some contrast. Okay, I might lower the black a little bit. Now I want to go do another one where I select body skin. Okay, so people, it's going to find him. Hopefully, it should, yes. And then this one, again, you can just select entire person, or I can say I want the body skin, and I want the facial skin, and I want the clothes. And why didn't it pick up his face? So that's interesting. It didn't pick up his entire face. It only picked up part of his face. That's interesting. Okay, so I'm going to do that. And then I'm going to select create separate masks. So I want the body skin and the clothes separate. Okay, because I want to do different things to them. So I'm going to create the masks. Now, as you can see, they're not named. Okay, so we have to name this one. Clothes. I really wish that after you did those masks, it would name it for you, but it does not. Okay, and then body skin. Okay, so the body skin, what I really wanted was just his arms. You can see it's picking out something down here, which I don't want. Okay, so I actually want to lighten his arms a little bit because they look way too dark. Right, but is it doing... it's lightening his neck a little bit. So I don't want all this other stuff. Okay, so I'm just going to do a subtract, or I could do intersect. If you're a community member in our DPM community, we actually had a special guest the other day in our community, Pete Vandenine, and he gave a webinar on masking, like a deluxe webinar on masking. Okay, where's my... Oh, I got my pins hiding. Remember, I hid the pins? Okay, so I couldn't see where I created a radial mask. So he did an awesome webinar for our community members on masking in Lightroom. So what I did was I told it I wanted to intersect and lower this feather. I want to intersect, meaning the area that I want to mask is only his body skin inside the circle. Okay, so intersect means it must meet both requirements. So it must be body skin inside this radial gradient that I just drew. So that eliminates his neck and whatever it was picking up down there. Okay, so now it's only picking up his arms and his hands. Okay, so I don't want his arms to be so dark. So I might rename this one just arms. Okay, so it's just his arms. So there's the before, okay, and after. Now I have his clothes, okay, and I might even limit to just the shirt, right? I can add some clarity. I can add some black, so we'll give it more contrast. See that? and just giving it a bit more punch. Okay, so you can edit everything independently. Okay. I didn't do it didn't do his face as nicely, so I want to do his face and give him some extra texture, okay? Because he's got some beautiful character, right? So for him, instead of removing the smoothness, I'm going to add some. So it didn't pick up his face, so instead I could do a radial gradient, or we could do select object, okay? So literally with select object, you just paint over the part that you want, and it tries to find the edges for you, okay? Et voila, okay? So now it's even picking up his hair, okay? So instead of just his skin, I also have his eyes, his hair, everything, okay? So now I'm gonna add some clarity, and I feel like the highlights are a bit too high, so let's lower the highlights a little bit. But look at what that does. See that? Before, after. Maybe give them a little bit of texture as well. Okay. And I might even lower the shadows. Okay. So lowering the shadows as opposed to raising them, again, increases sort of that depth of the lighting. I feel like his face is a little bit too bright, actually. And I might scale my clarity back just a bit. So this is face. Okay. So the power of masking is the power of local adjustments. So what it allows you to do is pick just part of the image and edit just that. Okay, so there's the before and after. Now that I'm looking at it, the whole image looks a little bit too dark. So I originally darkened it. Now I'm going to brighten it. Every time I do this, it's a dance. I'm always checking to see, am I clipping anything? Do I need to come back and revisit anything? And the answer is usually yes. Okay. I'm clipping a tiny little bit on his forehead here, right? So I could either do the global adjustment or come back to face and just dial the highlights back down a little bit. There we go. See, I knew he was too bright. That looks better. There's before and after. Right. Now, did I do a vignette on here? Yes, I did. Right. So that looks pretty good, but that's also partly why his arm was getting too dark. So I'm going to widen that circle a little bit so his arm is not so dark. And instead, I want to darken this wall. So the vignette's not getting it. So I'm going to do another mask, and I'm just going to do a linear gradient. I used to do this a lot where I would just come in on the corners like this and just darken the corner, right? Before they had a better vignette tool. So I'm going to add to this one another linear gradient from this side, okay? So the same edits apply to that spot, okay? And then I'm going to add another one with a radial gradient. So I want to get this corner sort of just behind him here. But I don't want him, okay? So I might even do a subtract subject, okay? I could add some light behind him if I wanted as well, okay? So we've got background. I'll show you another little trick. I do this often with, this is just the corner darken. I do this with studio portraits where I didn't do a backlight, so you can do this anywhere. Radial gradient, make a circle, needs more of a feather, right? Make it soft, right? So it falls off. Maybe not quite so much. Then we're going to brighten, bring up the whites, and then we just need to subtract the subject, okay? And it's going to be a circle behind him. So now I have this radial gradient that's brightening wherever I put it, okay? Look at that. But it's not affecting him. So I could brighten down here or just inside the room a little bit, right? It just kind of adds a little bit of depth. When you have this black void behind someone, right? When you have this black void, it lacks depth. I want to be able to see what's going on behind him without it being too obtrusive. Okay, so see, that's the circle of light just in the middle. Just like so. Okay, so there's our before. Look how dark it is back here. I'm hoping they have a kitty or something, as it looks like there's a plate on the wall, on the floor. And then see these things down here where it's like lines on his pants. Again, I'm going to come in with the erase tool and just get rid of them. Because when you have things on the edges of your image, especially like white spots like this, they will draw your attention. Okay, so I tend to get rid of all the little white spots. Okay, I might even get rid of the dish. It looks weird. I don't know why there's a dish in the middle of the floor. Let's just get rid of the dish. It kind of just weirds me out. Doesn't want to get rid of it completely. See what I mean by the, there we go. That's better. And it adds a little bit of texture. So keep the grain. So that looks good to me. I might even come in and darken the TV, right? Now I'm going to make a virtual copy because I want to show you not just before and after. I'm going to make 2 virtual copies because I want one that I'm going to show you the original. We can compare side by side. And another one where I'm going to do some other things to it. Okay, so from here, we can actually do some color grading. Right, so this one, we can do some color grading. So I can make it look more like a sepia. Okay. Update the masks. Notice the yellow thing. Okay, so sepia, adding to the shadows, you just need to add somewhere in here, like a yellow warmish color. Okay, so this is what I call like a warm chocolate brown or warm tone black and white. And this is more when you add it into the sepia and add in to the highlights as well. And I want to get the same color. Let's go 54. So I just get the same color, 54. Okay, that's more of a sepia, right? So when your highlights have the yellow as well. Okay, so that's kind of a neat thing. Okay, I like sepia. I could also do a split tone where I have blue in the shadows, like this, and yellow highlights, which is kind of cool because it really makes him stand out, right? But I like the warm sepia because it feels more like an old time portrait. So I really like that kind of feeling. Okay. There we go. Back to sepia. One last thing on here. We can do a tone curve to actually give it a matte black look. And I've tried this on this one before. And I find that when I lifted the black, you just do that on the curve. I need to then darken the overall image. And it kind of got a little bit too muddy. So I decided that was not what I wanted to do on this one. Oops. There we go. Okay, if I want to do something in Luminar on this one, I certainly can still do that. But I might take the black and white instead and see what kind of toning I can do there. And this is a case where I would go directly to Luminar because I'm just adding some toning and some finishing, let's call it, okay? Anything that I don't feel like I need to get back to. You were the third thumb. Thanks, Danelle. I tell lots of people about you. It's hard to get a horse to drink. I appreciate that. We really do. If you use the mask that you create for the background as subject, could you use this mask to lighten the orange, and would it only lighten his skin? Yes and no, but there is no HSL in the masking. Like, I'll come back to that one in a second. So yes and no. Remind me to come back to that one. Okay. Okay, so now we are in Luminar. And some of the things that I like in Luminar are in the creative section. Also, there's high key and the dramatic tool work really great on black and white, right? Like, look what we can do here, right? A little too much on the brightness, but it's just adding to that same sort of grunge effect, okay? See that? Maybe not quite so much. So I really like that. We can also try the lighting, but I think the lighting is really good here. I don't know that I need to do anything on the lighting, but the glow tool is kind of neat because one of them is glow where it actually takes highlights and glows. So he glows, but nothing else does. Okay, so we can still keep the grunge on the dark parts of the image. Okay, but if we're just glowing, I'll take it to extreme so you can see what it's doing. Okay, so it's just adding a glow to the highlights on his skin, and I really kind of like that. Okay, so we're still keeping the texture, but just giving him a little bit of glow on the highlights only. Okay, now it is going to affect the stuff in the background as well. I could mask it if I want to. Right. Let's see what else. The one that I wanted to come though is for the mood tool. Okay, so a sepia tone here, I can use I could use the, what are we? Toning tool and do the same thing as I did in Lightroom to create sepia. But because I have the mood tool, I can apply a lot. Okay, and there's tons more options here, right? I have all kinds of things in here that I can apply. I have a whole bunch of sepia tones, for example, right? So look at the difference here. Now I've dialed the amount up to 50 plus, okay? So I can always dial it back. But when I'm looking through the LUTs, I like to dial it up because then I really get a sense of what that tool, what that option, this LUT is going to do, okay? So look at this. Oh, I like that one a lot. And then I just scroll through them, okay? Some are a little bit too contrasty, kind of like one of those first ones. There's a matte look that actually works. It's not bad. No, those first ones were actually really great. One of these old ones. See, this one's kind of red. Not so much. I think this one is quite good, right? It's brightening a little bit, but we can fix that. We can lower the brightness, right? I tend to play around with LUTs a fair bit, and I have some. You can favorite some. Any of the color ones are not going to work on here because I've already converted it to black and white. I should have brought the color one in. See, it's only going to give me like duotones in here. Oh, that's interesting. Look at that. Interesting. So see, even though they're color ones, we're getting some interesting effects, right? So there's that same kind of look that I had in Lightroom with the yellow highlights and blue shadows, okay? Same kind of idea. I've got some other ones that are sepia. Here's some black and white ones. Okay, so here's some black and white ones. Yeah, I'm not seeing the ones that I wanted. It's not really giving me anything different. That's not bad. A little bit on the dark side, right? But it's very similar to what I had in Lightroom, right? Very similar. And then it goes a little bit too dark, so I probably brighten that a little bit. I don't mind this one at all. It's not too bad. It's not darkening him too much, right? I take these all the way just to see what they do, right? So I'm really not doing a whole ton here in Luminar. I'm just adding some extra drama, and I think it's gone a little too dark, so I'm going to brighten it a little bit. There we go. Check my clippings. I'm good. Same keyboard shortcut on that one, okay? Now, I'm going to see if portrait bokeh will work in this one. It will. Okay, so I'm going to see if I can blur some of the stuff in the background a little bit just to minimize it. I don't want to blur right next to him, okay? And I don't want the highlights glowing, right? But I can darken the background and blur it a little bit. So just that TV, that's the part that's kind of bugging me in the background. Before, after. It's not getting this wall over here, so maybe I need to be closer. That's getting closer to what I was looking for. That's getting closer. And then I'm just going to dial it back a little bit. So see how it's just softening those things a little bit. It's got him a little too much, so I'm just going to make sure that he's focused, right? And I don't want the background here to be that focused or the floor to be out of focus that much. Let's see. Just those windows and that TV. Just enough to minimize it. I quite like that. So again, there's a before and after. And I probably should have taken it from the color version, and then I'd have more LUTs available. Okay, let me come back to that skin question. Okay, so now we're getting our Luminar one. Okay, so in the color version, well, now I've got multiple versions here. I'm just going to leave that one, and let's put this one back in color. Ah, did I do color grading here? He looks an odd color now, doesn't he? Yeah, he looks an odd color. Something happened in the translation here, but he looks an odd color. So you said when I was doing the subject background, because you use it to brighten the skin. Okay, so let me show you that one. Okay, so when you're on the subject, okay, there is no HSL. Okay, you have point color only. Okay, so inside the mask, this has been a pet peeve of mine forever. You can pick a skin color, okay, and see what it selects. Let's see if it gets his skin. So that's what it's getting right now, right? I can increase the range. And his skin tone is not, you know, that perfect. So, yeah, that's just shifting it. I didn't get a good color. So let me delete this swatch. This is probably not the best example. Let me show you on the couple. Okay, let me do it on this one. They've got better color. Okay, so on this one of the subject, point color, pick a skin color, and it matters where, if you get too dark or too light, right? And then you have to use the point color, okay? So we can visualize what it's selected here. That's pretty close to all of them, right? And then I can brighten or darken, okay? So yes, you can do it within a mask, but it's tricky. It's not just one slider. You have to do the point color. Okay? Does that help answer that question? And I made a mess of this guy. And update my masks. All right, so let's have a look at what we've created of this fellow. Okay, so we've got the original. There's 4. So the original, the first Lightroom version, the second Lightroom sepia version, and then the Luminar version at the end. They're pretty close. Color, I could probably match this one in terms of the sepia tone color, but what I can't do is do as nice of a blur. If I try it, well, let's do that, because there's the lens blur in Lightroom, but it doesn't do as nice a job, trust me. Okay, so you have to apply it first, and then it takes a minute to analyze. Okay, and then I can decide, okay, how much. Let's look at where the blur is. It's actually doing not a bad job here. Like, it's getting too much under his chair, because his chair and the floor wouldn't be blurry. So I can adjust so that just the far wall is blurry. You can adjust the range of focus, right? It's actually doing not too bad. Actually, that's pretty good. Yeah, that's actually pretty good. So now let's compare those two. So the Luminar one is on the right, and the Lightroom one, which is focusing, come on Lightroom, you can do it, is on the left. They look pretty similar in terms of like blur. The Lightroom one's a little more blurred, right? But I kept the Luminar one very subtle, right? I just wanted that back wall. So they look pretty close, right? I like the added grunge of the Luminar one and the toning here. As a matter of fact, I think I'm going to add this to my Cuba portfolio. Danelle says, you never cease to amaze me at your knowledge and expertise with all of these programs and the quality of your images. Well, that's what happens when you've been doing this for 38 years. I don't even want to say it. We've been talking about age and aging recently, and we're sort of in denial. Like I said, I don't want to be 58. I don't want to turn 59 next month. I'm in resistance, and I'm starting to understand why people say they're 49 forever or 39 forever. I had no problem with 40. 50 was, questionable, but 60, I'm like, no, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. I want to also give a shout out to Colleen, who made my lovely earrings that I'm wearing. They are our DPM colors. And if you are in Edmonton, it's Cookham's Closet with Colleen. And I'll even put a link to her Facebook page in the description area. So that's for you, Colleen. Thank you for doing such beautiful work and bringing my vision of putting my business colors into my earrings. So thank you very much. I support local Indigenous artists, including Colleen. So, hi, Colleen. Thank you. That means thank you in Cree. So, here we are. I'm going to call this one. We've done lots of neat things today. Oh, there's one other thing I wanted to show you, just in terms of not editing, but as I mentioned earlier, is your editing starts in the camera. So I kind of wanted to show this progression here of what happens when you're on site. Now, I do use Flash. So we had this guy hired to pose for us in Cuba, and we went to the Malecon at sunset, and this is without the flash. This is with the flash. You can see the light hitting him and the shadow here, okay? And then this is the edited version, right? So I really used the mask to bring out the light on him, right? There's another one, which would be a great one to edit. And again, I can take this one and probably do a pretty good job of copy and paste the settings onto this one, okay? Actually, let's do that. Let's see how close I get, okay? You can actually, as well, use previous. Previous copies everything, so I don't want to copy everything because I don't want cropping and spot removal, okay? So I'm going to leave that and paste onto here. Look at that, 5 seconds. 5 seconds to go from that to that. And all I need to do literally is probably just darken the whole thing a little bit. I'm also going to warm it up. So I can make the sky a different color. So I can keep him neutral, and I can go and make the sky, right, which is this one here, golden, right? If I want more gold in the sky, pink, gold. Let's darken. Let's add some drama. There we go. Look at that. Okay. Actually, I kind of like that blue and pink. Yeah, there we go. Look at that. Okay. And subject is this guy right here. Background. Okay. Now notice it picked up him. Maybe I just need to remove the brush. Yes, I do. So something on the other one I brushed in. So always check your masks, right? It probably missed a spot in between his saxophone and his arm. So I probably painted that in. But one other thing I want to do is darken this area in front of him. So I'm going to do a radial gradient on the ground here, just below his feet. Darken. See that? Because I don't want to give the illusion, and then just subtract him. Okay, so he stays lit, but the wall gets darker. Actually, I didn't mind darkening his sneakers. I'm going to leave them dark. Okay. So there, quickly and easily, copy and paste, and like what? 2 minutes, not even that. Okay. So I just wanted to show you that. Some behind the scenes pictures actually on this one. So this is what it looked like when we were shooting. This is our local guide, and he was being my voice activated light stand, which is usually Rob's job. And here's one of our tour members photographing our musician, right? There's another shot that I did. This one is not edited, right? And there's the behind the scenes, right? So again, I could quickly and easily edit this one, you know, using the same type of things. Preset. I just want to do this real time to show you how quick I do this, okay? So I'm going to use a camera profile. Shift double click. Add some clarity. And he feels a little bit cool, okay? I probably do a white balance adjustment on him. That's way too warm. I don't want it that warm. I want it to feel like Blue Hour-ish, right? Then I'm going to do, now I have some other ones that are lighten subject, darken background. So I've taken that same preset to the next level where I've actually applied some settings, okay? So I'm lightening him, darkening the background, and then the same thing, I need to darken this here. So I'm actually going to do another one where I do that radial gradient again, right? And just sort of select this area minus the subject, right? So I'm darkening. And I might even subtract a linear gradient from this way. So I just want it to fade in up to about there. Okay, see that? So I'm just selecting that part. Okay, that's all I'm darkening. So literally like that. And all of these things are adjustable. Okay. And an edge vignette. And there we go. So how quickly was that? Right? How quick did I do that? Now his shoes are super white. I would probably darken them a little bit. I could actually come into the subject one and do a subtract and just sort of brush them out a little bit. Because I just want to make sure that they're not being brightened so much. Because I'm brightening him, right? So less on the shoes. And then I might even, with this one where I'm darkening, I might add a little bit of brushwork here. So again, I'm just coming over the shoes a bit. There we go. Oh, I got his sock. Don't want to make him look like he didn't do his laundry. Okay, something like that. Okay, so really quickly from that to that. And likewise, I think this would also make a really nice black and white. So whenever I find an image that I think is great black and white, I'll do a virtual copy and then do both and compare. Okay, so black and white, Yes, indeed it does. Right? Notice how much blue there is in his shirt. See that? Right? Even though it's black and white, it still has the orange tone in the skin, right? And I'm going to go probably a tone curve. I love to add a S curve in the middle. Something like that. Oops. That's what happens when your tone curve goes crazy. So I'm just doing it in the middle, but I don't want to darken that too much. Like so. So now, very dramatic, right? I think I could actually, I went too far on the blue, I think. Yeah, we need the saxophone. There we go. Look how much green there is in places that you would not expect. Right? So try all the colors. This is literally what I do. I just look at everything. Right? So again, progression. 2 different versions. Quickly and easily. I think his shoes are still too bright here. Should have told him not to wear Nikes. Oh well. Okay, so we'll be back again in a couple of weeks. I'm enjoying watching the Olympics, the Winter Olympics in Italy. I don't know about you guys, but I'm really enjoying that. So I got some Olympics to catch up. We got our Canadian men's team is in hockey, and I've been watching curling, believe it or not. Go figure. So I'll be back in a couple of weeks with a different topic yet again. And there's lots of great topics for you to watch already on the channel. So if you missed some of this presentation or all of it up to this point, you can watch it as soon as I end the stream. And you can also go back and watch all the previous ones. We did some great topics recently, including comparing Lightroom to Luminar edits, 10-minute edits in each program, layers, color grading, and more, even though we did a little bit of color grading today. So portraits kind of puts all of those things together. There's another whole stream just on black and white. So a couple of hours just on black and white. So I hope you found some value today. Sheila says, another great session. Thank you so much, Sheila. And after the video is processed, remember to give it some hype. You have to do that on your phone. It's a brand new feature in YouTube. So dial into the YouTube app and hype this video to get it shown to other people. Tell other people that this is great and you enjoyed it. That's what hype is all about. Yes, the women's curling or masters as well. The men, they both lost their first game the other night. So, but the Canadian men's hockey, the Canadian men's hockey, I don't want to jinx them. We'll just say I'm following it, right? Because we have Connor McDavid from our Edmonton Oilers playing on the Canadian Olympic team for the first time. Sheila says, came in late, so we'll catch the beginning. Oh, that's Deb. Hey, Darlene. Hey, Deb. And Danelle, thank you so much for today. Thank you. All right. Yes. And only hype in the first 7 days. So like tomorrow, give it hype. Thanks everyone for joining. Take care. Enjoy the Olympics and we'll see you soon.